That was pretty good.
Hey. Thanks, Ray.
You are wonderful.
It's okay.
No, you are
I'm just your
wonderful.
opening act. It's okay.
Such a message, too. And to realize that, in essence, we are standing on holy ground wherever we are, because the Spirit is moving through us. We are a spiritual being having a physical experience. And to have that notion with us always, with the power to remember the incredible voice that Renee has. Today's color is orange, so this is the only orange I own. So that's why the Hawaii theme. And then also, Lynn and I have two friends that are in Kauai right now, and so why not? We'll celebrate them today too. So that's for Kay and Tom. So I'm Ray Madaghiele, if you don't know, and I'm the author of the book Ray of Hope for Peace, which we're basing this 6-week commitment program on. And Joel and I have been meeting actually since December to craft what this 6 weeks would look like. And so Joel was feeling under the weather today, and I want you to remember that because I'm going to have a challenge for you a little later, something that we'll do to kind of honor Joel, okay? So I'll just put that aside for now. So I'm going to start out with words that actually Joel crafted as the affirmation for this particular lesson today, which is based on orange, which is all about feelings, and it's all about living life fully. So go ahead and put that up on the screen, and let's repeat this together. My feelings of love for life energize me and are very catchy. That's so Joel, isn't it? Joel reminds me a lot. So Joel is 81 years old. And so, 82, excuse me, I lost track. 82 years old, and it reminds me a lot of Charles Fillmore, who at 94 years old wrote something very similar to this. You remember what it was?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to say it, and then we'll have you all repeat it, okay? So I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm and spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that ought to be done by me. Together? Okay, in pieces. You ready? I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm. Together? I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm. And spring forth with a mighty faith. And spring forth with a mighty faith. To do the things that ought to be done by me. To do the things that ought to be done by me. Wow. 94 years old. That's when he wrote that one. So, are you having those thoughts as you move through your week? As fires are burning, winds of change are happening. We're going to kind of take a journey today. And I'm going to relate it to chapters 2 and 3 of the book. And just so you know, in your program you'll see this orange sheet. This is actually what our study groups are using throughout the week. And that affirmation is actually at the bottom, on the back. And so there's some great questions for you to consider for the week that could help you do some exploring so that it's not just the message on Sunday and what did they say? You can go back and actually do your own work. And so we're going to take some of the messages out of there and share a story that is related in the book. So when Lynn and I made the decision to take our bicycle journey, so I cycled from Phoenix to Ground Zero in the aftermath of 9/11, and so we left Phoenix on July 4th. Go ahead and put that slide up. So this was actually us leaving. And do you recognize anyone in that particular picture?
Joel.
Joel! So here's Joel right here. Long hair. So this was in 2002, July 4th. And we were there about 6:30 in the morning getting ready to take the first stroke of the journey. And what was interesting is when this idea for the trip came, there was a metaphor that came forth with it. And so the metaphor was the phoenix bird rising from the ashes. Because people ask me, well, why didn't you start from the coast? I mean, when people bicycle across the country, they'll start in California and go that way. Why didn't you do that? You know, it would have been a lot cooler because on July 4th, 2002, it got up to 105 degrees. But here's why. This notion of the phoenix bird came to me, and I actually sketched it out. And what it looked like to me. Why don't you go ahead and show that up there? So this was a drawing I created right after that idea came. And it was the idea of the phoenix bird rising from the ashes, but you notice it metamorphizing into a peace bird. It kind of felt like that. So you had what happened at 9/11 in New York. That is considered the ashes. And what we had been observing throughout that, 9 months or so since the events was an incredible amount of transformation that was happening with people serving each other in greater ways, giving of themselves in ways that they never thought of before, showing more love and compassion with each other. So there was a lot of that type of energy that was being reborn. And so I like that we had our scientific friends that were up here earlier, because there's a scientific law of thermodynamics that says energy can neither be created nor destroyed, merely transformed. So in essence, we can transform an energy, whether it's the energy of chaos, of fire, we can transform that into something else, constructive, something else that might serve the planet. And so this idea of the phoenix bird, so the mythological story goes that the phoenix bird actually built a fire of aromatic wood and cast itself in the fire, and then 2 days later rose from the ashes and deposited 2 eggs at the altar of the sun god. So that's the metaphorical phoenix, which was kind of interesting because as we're kind of approaching Easter, there's this rebirth of Jesus. So Jesus, first of all, knew that he was going to be crucified. It was just a matter of time. And so what he did is he announced to his disciples, this is going to happen. But let your heart not be troubled. So in essence, just keep focusing on God the way I've showed you. How this God of joy, this God of love. And then think of me in that way. Focus on me if your heart is troubled. And so I think what he meant by that is, you saw how I walked this earth over this 3 years that we've been together. So I walked it in joy. I walked it in love. I walked it in compassion. I walked it in service. And you see, that's the phoenix bird. To rebirth in that image that I had was, that energy of the fire being transformed to something else. It's a natural law. If we choose to channel that energy. If we realize we're only standing on higher ground. Even if it's down here, we're still standing on higher ground. Because with us always, there's this energy of spirit that flows through us, that can be channeled in amazing ways. And I think that's why Joel, at 82 years old, can bounce around the way he can. You've seen Joel bounce, right? And so this whole metaphor of fire was really interesting because we had that idea. We did the launch on July 4th of 2002. When we're getting ready for the launch, the fires are burning in northern Arizona with the Rodeo Chetasky fire. One of the biggest fires we've ever experienced in Arizona. So it's burning right where I was supposed to cycle through. And so it's up around Heber Overgard. That's the road that I had charted out to take. And so Lynn and I are talking, well, maybe we have to change our path. And we weren't sure. And we weren't going to be sure until we got up into the Payson area. And it was interesting about that fire because it triggered other thoughts. Back in 1998, Lynn, myself, and my 2 boys, Dominic and Joe, took a road trip and went up to Yellowstone. And so that was 10 years after they had a huge fire at Yellowstone that actually burnt 36% of the park. And when we were there at Yellowstone, we attended one of the rangers. They had a talk, and they were sharing about that fire. And they shared an incredible revelation. They said, we're really concerned that this tragedy, and they used that word, this tragedy was going to affect people coming here. The beauty of this would never be the same again. And then 2 years later, they started monitoring what was happening in the park. They noticed trees were sprouting, shrubs were sprouting, flowers were blossoming, and then they started studying what those flowers were. And what they discovered was there were species of plants that were growing that did not exist in the whole 100-year history of that park. There were dormant seeds that lay there over 100 years ago, waiting for something with this intensity of heat that could cause them to germinate, burst open, and bring new beauty and new life. But yet we, with our eyes, we love this beauty. Oh no, my world has just been shaken. But yet, nature knows what it's doing. And over time, new growth comes forth. And see, that's a great metaphor for us. I think we get attached to a lot of things in our life. So we get attached, even with our spouses, our significant others, our family members. We get attached to, we've always done things in the same way with them. Like I always used to go to Aunt Sadie's house, the same Easter and same Christmas every year, and that type of thing. You get into that routine. I'm going to have a challenge for you. There's going to be a couple challenges this Valentine's, which is on Tuesday. Do something different to your significant others, with your significant others that you haven't done before. Something that's maybe a way you haven't served before, so maybe you've never done a breakfast for them in the morning. Do a breakfast for them in the morning. Maybe there's little things that irritate you about your significant other. Maybe it's the way they eat. Maybe it's the little sounds they make when they're snoring. What if you could this week look past that and look more towards what is that spirit that's shining from them? Think almost back to that point in time where you first met them, your first date, when time stopped. There was no one else around. You shut down that restaurant because you were talking all night, just mesmerized by that other person. I would love for you to find that place this Valentine.